Welcome to another episode of Craft and Process. I'm Nicholas Young. Today I'm sitting in Boulder, Colorado at the home of one of Colorado's most refreshing beers, Sanitas Brewing, home of the Cherry Saison. And I'm excited now to welcome, hopefully my new friend, co-founder of Sanitas Brewing, Michael Memsic, to Craft and Process. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Good to be here.
So Michael, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about why you decided to start Sanitas Brewing and how you went about it?
Yeah, I think for me, this has been a long play. This definitely isn't new for me or for us. I've been in Boulder a long time now. I was a student at CU and got way into craft beer while I was a student. Started homebrewing while on campus. And then my senior year, I took a job at Oskar Blues up in Lyons when it was still in the barn. And I was approximately the third guy hired to can beer there when I was a 21-year-old kid, and arguably the best job I've ever had. Hook, line, sinker, I was set. I did about a year with them and then left, did just shy of a decade with Boulder Beer. And really that entire time with a vision, a plan, and a dream to own a brewery someday. So the steps for me just kind of continued to go, one step at a time. While working at Boulder Beer, I met my business partner here, or business partner of over 11 years here, and basically had one of those nights where it was like, we should do this. Like, what's it going to take? And we thought it was going to be easy and fast and all that other stuff, and we were wrong. We thought raising money would be easy, and we were wrong. But put together a plan and opened this location in 2013. So it's been the game since then.
I mean, that's an eternity ago. We're sitting here in 2025, over a decade later, and it's got to be weird for some people in the craft beer movement to hear Oskar Blues literally started in a barn, but that's where beer in Colorado, and especially craft beer, used to be. It's not that anymore, but it started that way.
Yeah, it was dudes in garages and scrapping things together, or not just dudes, but people in garages, and it was hobbies turned into passion. But I think that's something that still is true for a lot of craft beer and a lot of the people who are still starting today, which I think is bold to say the least. But it's a passion play. It's a passion industry, and these start as hobbies and love affairs with a liquid that turn into companies and careers, which I think is really unique. There's an analogy that I play with that is still true, but like no one ever goes to their partner and says, hey, hon, I'm going to go out to the garage for a few hours and go digging for oil. But a lot of people work in oil and gas, and there's money to be made in oil and gas. But people go and they say, hey, I'm going to head out to the garage for 4 to 8 hours and work on my new IPA. And that garage activity, quote unquote activity, turns into, goes from a passion or a hobby to a passion, and then people give it a shot. I didn't spend a lot of that homebrew time, but it is wild that the roots of craft beer throughout Colorado and really throughout America are built out of garages, which is kind of a cool, weird thing.
So you mentioned that you didn't spend a lot of the typical homebrewing time kind of workshopping everything. How were those early years, and how did you get through them? And are there any lessons that you carry with you today?
I think there's twofold to that. I think from the personal, professional, not the Sanitas side of things, but kind of my space is I ended up in the professional environment so quickly that there was no point in continuing to homebrew because I could do it on a larger scale very quickly, and I didn't have to make a mess in my house. So from that side of things, I don't think that it was necessarily a bad thing that I didn't have the years of homebrewing that a lot of folks in our industry had during that time period. I mean, by the time I was 22 years old, I was a professional brewer and doing it on a full scale. So I think that's a different component. And for me, I think there's that passion in trying to continue to remember to have fun and to remember that this liquid matters. I really fell in love with a liquid. Lust, love, head over heels, like the whole package. And that's really evolved for me over time. To me now, it's much more about community and people and business than it is just the liquid. So I think that's been an evolution for me that I think is interesting. But to your point of your question of the what do you hang on to, it's that passion for the liquid that people still have, and that it's not as upfront for me today as it was at one point in time, but like it is something that's special and it's fun. Like this is recreation. Nobody needs craft beer. People want craft beer, and I think that's a great thing to remember when you're in my shoes.
That makes sense. And it's not just about getting a beer, because they can go off and do that anywhere. It's about getting a beer with your people in a space that you know is intentionally inclusive.
Community.
And that's the next question that I want to dig into. All of your tap rooms have an intentionally inclusive culture.
Yep.
I noticed that they're all accessible. I noticed that's something that you're proud of from a disability and accessibility standpoint.
Yep.
I also noticed that you welcome everybody regardless of where they fall on that LGBTQIA spectrum, and that you try to create a space that's intentionally welcoming for anybody and everybody.
Yeah. I think for me, when I think about that inclusivity piece, there's a couple of there's a lot of layers involved.
I figured there's probably quite a few to kind of filter down through, because they're all coming at it from different axes.
Sure. When, we're in Boulder, for starters, and home base is Boulder. And this is a pretty open, liberal, welcoming place, especially when I think in the LGBTQ component, that side of the business. That was something that's been very easy and natural for us to align with. And it didn't seem like we were making exceptions to welcome people in. We would have been making exclusions not to welcome in. And maybe that's me being naive, and that it's because we've just kind of always been the way we are, and that the leaders of this company have the beliefs and the assumptions and the perspectives that we do, where we're not going out of our way to be inclusive. We're living our life, and we're doing what we feel like is the right thing to do. And like what seems normal is not the right word. I don't want to devalue that space, but we're not going crazy for it. We're just saying, hey, here's an opportunity, and you look different, or you believe something different than me. I don't know that I care.
Right.
And I don't want to say that in an insensitive way, but I'm not going to look at I'm not afraid of you because you believe something different than I believe. So why wouldn't I serve you a beer? Like, if I'm unwilling or uncomfortable serving you a beer because you look different than me, or you believe in something different than me, then that makes me an asshole, and I don't want to be an asshole. I think when it comes to the disability space, for us, it really started, and I think here the challenge, our biggest challenge, is our patio. We have an incredible patio. Our lower level and our main level are not wheelchair easy, but this all dates back to the architect that we've worked with, who was always like very aggressive on thinking about ADA and being on the front edge of what the building code and all that stuff does, saying like, well, this is the direction we're going. And from my perspective, it was like, okay, well, if that's the direction we're going, like, we should just do what's right there. Because if this is where building codes are going to be in 5 to 10 years, that's not because the building code is crazy.
Right.
That's because they've seen an issue. They feel like they're trying to address an issue. that's already been an issue, and it's going to happen. And so I think that we have tried to remain thoughtful in that. And when it's like, this is going to be a little bit more expensive during the process, but we think that this is the right thing to do. And it's like, doing the right thing is one of our core values in terms of how it affects us as individuals, how it affects the company, how it affects our customers, and how it affects our community. And that is a layer that really takes that doing the right thing to the next step, where it's like, okay, well, this is the right thing for this group of people. So it's not like, again, we're not going crazy to do this, and it doesn't hurt someone. It's not like we can't make money because we open up to this group of people.
I get that. And I think that's something that I just wanted to ask, because a lot of people see that a little bit of additional investment as something that is maybe just unwarranted or frustrating. I mean, it seems to me like you see it literally as just a matter of doing business, because it's going to open your brewery and your spaces to more people. But I also see when I walk into the tap room that you have signs up that say, if you're not feeling like this is an inclusive space, please let us know. And I think that's a different side of it. Like, it's one thing to just say it's good business to serve people, and that's true, and I absolutely support that. But you guys have gone a bit of an extra mile and said, if you don't feel like this is an inclusive space, tell us, give us the feedback.
Sure, because that's doing the right thing for our community.
Yeah.
And without our community, we don't have anything. Again, no one needs us. We need these people, and if we can create spaces and experiences and products that people really want to have, then we become a need to their world and their life and their community, and then we become a fixture in the community. But again, like, this isn't bread, milk. We're not the grocery store. This is a luxury product. This is a recreation environment. And we want to do as many things as we possibly can to be on people's everyday list. And we want to do better to the community than the community does to us. And if we can accomplish that I am 100% convinced that the community will give back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, and especially when I hang out in the Englewood tap room, which is the one that I frequent more often, it's always really nice to walk in the door and see like the Roll Mobility Certified logo and just know that like you guys have allowed people to come through the spaces and to check it out and make sure that it's not just accessible by your own standards, but it's accessible to the community standards and everyone else who needs to interact with that space. And I'm just encouraged by that as someone who hangs out in the tap room, seeing that and seeing that commitment long term.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and thank you for saying that. It's it's part of the puzzle, and it is something that's intentional, and it feels like the right thing to do, which is, again, it's a core value of ours. So that's it's the life we're trying to live here.
So we started out here in Boulder.
Yep.
We're sitting in the original tap room, and
Yep.
we got the brewing equipment and everything behind us.
Exactly.
But you have since also expanded out to Englewood and
Yep.
put a tap room down there in my neck of the woods.
Yep.
Tell me about the process of figuring out, now you're brewing in 2 different brew houses.
Yep.
How does all that work out?
The brewing now is fairly easy. Excuse me. The process, we actually opened a 3rd location in August of 2024 in Lafayette. So we're kind of on a tear right now. When the rest of the industry is kind of retracting down, we're trying to mash the gas, which may turn out to be talk to me in 10 years if that was a phenomenal strategy or a dumpster fire of a strategy.
We'll come back at 5 and see how it is then.
Yeah. So that is a process that we're working on, but yeah, hopefully we'll get something else open here in 2025. If not, we'll try to get 2 in 2026. I'm on a tear to continue to open locations, and this is our bread and butter. The experience, the spaces, and hospitality, something that is really core to this brand. and who we are. It's also what I'm best at and most passionate about. That's the people side of things versus the liquid side of things. My passion and love started with the liquid, and that's where you can just send cans like postcards to as many people across America as humanly, or across the world as humanly possible. And there's a difference when you want to pull them into your home and into your spaces and try and take care of them. And we've really shifted that thinking and that model. From the brewing perspective in Englewood, that's really an R&D facility for us. We're not doing a ton of brewing down there. That's an opportunity for our brewers to try out new yeast varieties, weird stuff.
Okay.
I think what's going on in Englewood from a brewing perspective is weird things. And I shouldn't say weird, but like new, different things that we've never played with.
Right.
We just worked with a yeast that is a lager yeast that cuts the time less than half.
The Nova. Yeah,
the Nova
I tried
lager.
that the other day. It's great.
That is an example of something that we're playing around with. We're not ready to commit to doing that in a full production batch today. And then the other thing that we're doing down there is staff brews. So we will go to one of our taproom groups and say, what do y'all want to see on draft? Like, what do you want? And we don't care what the answer is. There is no right and wrong answer. Let's do something together. Let's curate a recipe, and then let's all go down to Englewood and brew that beer. And then they get the opportunity to, get their hands dirty. The Boulder team can do that, in the winter, fewer days of the week, in the summer, 6 days a week. Do they always do that? No. If we're just brewing IPA, the brewer's doing their job and the taproom bartender's doing their job. But when we do these a few times a year, when we bring people together and say, what do you want to drink? What do you want to make? It makes it fun. And we've had some creative things that I never would have picked. Not that I'm picking everything, but I wouldn't have picked what we did. And they turned out great. And that makes it fun.
Have they made some of the recent darker beers down there in Englewood?
Yes. One of the recent darker beers was born out of the Englewood location.
I mean, because if you hear any chatter coming back from the Englewood tap room asking for dark beers, I almost guarantee you it's me.
Yeah.
Because I have a thing for stouts and porters and even imperial stouts. And not many breweries in Colorado do that. They're all bowing on the altar of hops. I want something dark.
Yes, we bring them seasonally. But we are finding, you're not the only one. We are experiencing, especially from our tap rooms, that just brewing lager and hoppy beer isn't enough. I mean, it's never been enough. We're averaging 18 to 20 beers on draft in all of our locations. So there's a lot of opportunity, and that gives us the slot where we can drop in a couple of malty things. And throughout the year, historically, we didn't. When you came into one of our shops in the summertime, there was nothing darker malty unless it was left over from winter. It was like a barrel aged something that we did. It was like, well, we might as well keg this and we're gonna make fun of July or something, Christmas in July or something stupid like that. We are running with more malty beers throughout the year, but it still isn't a focus of ours.
I mean, the fact that you're even doing it sets you apart from a lot of other spaces out there because so many people in Colorado, they want the light lagers, the IPAs all the time. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great. It's refreshing. It's fantastic. I love a Mexican lager, in the middle of summer, but come winter, I'm ready for something a little bit more than that.
Sure.
And
for sure.
So you're talking about the idea of basically just being able to send cans anywhere. The fact that you can, make a bunch of beer, especially here where it's like clockwork in the Boulder location, send that out, get it canned, get it in people's hands. You also own or are a part owner in Brewer Star Distribution as well.
Yes.
I wanted to touch on that for a minute because is it really complementary or is there like a push and pull to the two businesses, and how do you work between those two environments?
I think the answer is yes. It is a push and pull, and it's complementary. In the beginning, I thought it was a lot more complementary, and it would be a lot more complementary than it is. And today, I think about it as hats and phases of life. I separate my home life from my professional life as much as I can. And, I'm not perfect at that. I screw that up frequently. And I try to keep my Brewer Star hat and my Sanitas hat separate.
Okay.
They overlap a lot. But for me to think of them as two independent companies, which they are in all intents and purposes, but to think of them as two separate companies and really try to switch my hat back and forth on how I'm thinking through that process, how I'm leading that and managing that is the best way I've found to keep them both moving forward and having success. But it's a shit show, like it's a mess having both of them and the way they work together and don't.
So just for the people who probably are a bit uninitiated, like the Brewer Star side is going to be getting it in the hands of people who are going to want to buy it commercially, I guess.
Correct. The Brewer Star side of things is it's a separate company, separate liquor license, separate everything, that also sells other breweries and distilleries product as well. But basically, Sanitas has its own company, makes cans, kegs, finishes the product, and then Brewer Star is who's responsible to selling it to liquor stores, bars, and restaurants throughout Colorado.
Got it. Okay.
So that's like the division of the process. So Brewer Star represents multiple different breweries, and so we have sales reps that walk into your liquor store, and they have a whole portfolio that they're presenting that includes Sanitas to the bar, the decision maker at your liquor store or your bar. And it really functions really independently of Sanitas. We ping pong off of each other, but from the employee and the company and all that, they're separate entities.
And how do you think about when you have one hat on versus the other, and how, especially I guess in the Sanitas brand, you're really concerned about making sure you're doing right by the community that you've built. It's not just a get it in people's hands. It's
Sure.
Get it in people's hands so that they can drink it and build a movement and build a community. How do you kind of trade those roles and understand in being effective in both?
Sure. The hope is that we're doing the right things with the Sanitas brand through Brewer Star when it gets out there. But Brewer Star has a different set of core values. It has a different philosophy. It serves a different purpose. And really that company, when I think about the root of that, that's to take care of the suppliers and really what we call our business partners. So that's to take care of the suppliers and take care of the liquor stores. Because the way we think about liquor stores and bars and restaurants, the way we think about it is the actual suppliers or the other breweries, they need to have their ethos around how the end consumer feels about their liquid. We're not in the liquor stores doing that work directly with the end consumer. We're trying to provide the bridge between these suppliers and that end consumer outside of their spaces. So then where we're building our community in terms of Brewer Star is taking care of our suppliers and taking care of the restaurants and the liquor stores and trying to get them the product they need, from the liquor store, get them the product that they need that will succeed in their account, on time, fresh, yada, yada, yada. And for our suppliers, it's to try and get them to move as much volume so that they can make the money that they need to pay their bills.
It's neat because if I go and I find Sanitas in the tap room and I'm at a liquor store or whatever, a few weeks later, maybe I'm going to a party or whatever, and I haven't had time to swing by the tap room to do the full pickup.
Yep.
Like I can get something there. I know it's good. I know it's fresh, and I'm going to be able to take it to the party, go have a good time.
Yep.
And I feel like still seeing the Sanitas Owl means a lot to me in that space because I know it's a tight collaboration, and it's like the moment that you guys have finished something off at Sanitas, it's like, where does it go? How do we get it in the hands of people?
Yeah, we are lucky to have a lot of control over the stream, so to speak. People still find old beer out there. We're not perfect. I hope that we're doing a good job. I would love to think that we're doing a great job. We have flaws along the way, and that's it's a hard game. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of pieces along the stretch. But it is something that we are handling this product the whole way, with the exception of that account. When you're in that liquor store, if the operators of that liquor store are phenomenal to the beer or fine, obviously that's out of our control, but that's something that, hopefully we can work to massage a little bit, but everybody's trying to do that too.
Makes sense. How do you maintain consistency? You started this in a big operation pretty much right out of the gate.
Yep.
And as someone who consumes craft beer in Colorado, Sanitas is just consistently on point, at or above any other standard that I know of. But how do you ensure that you're doing that when you're opening, multiple tap rooms a year and trying to ensure that you've got proper distribution and all that?
Yeah, it's extensive. I'll admit that our consistency in QC over the years has evolved and changed. If we were having this conversation in 2015, 16, 17, I'd be blowing smoke up your butt telling you that our stuff was completely dialed. And I think that's one of the things with QC is the more you learn, the more you know what you didn't know yesterday. And so the more opportunities you have for improvement. We run a variety of different QC things where we're doing in-house work. We have outsourced lab work that we're doing. So it's really a blended program on how we're looking at beer. Almost all the liquid is produced here in Boulder. And so we have a pretty firm grip on what's happening, where it's been, where it's going, yada, yada, yada. All the details around what's happening. Englewood really is how do we learn, how do we get better? Mm-hmm. And then we're learning and then we're continuing to learn how to take what we learn it there and convert it here. But when I read about brewers who are, they've got 50% or 30% of their production in this facility and 30% in this and then 30% in that production and their consistency remains key. Like their lab and QC work is legions, layers, and significantly more advanced than ours is. We are lucky that we're still small and we don't have this huge footprint, and we know where most of our liquid is. Being able to know, because we don't have that much, we're not filling semis and sending them all across the country. We're talking about a small number of accounts in Colorado on the grand scheme of thing. Few, 300 to 600 accounts in Colorado have our product, and then in our other tap rooms. But like product in our other tap rooms, it left the cooler here. It went with our driver to the other cooler. It poured. It's gone. Like that's pretty good tracking for us.
So how do you blend these experimental brews that you're doing at the Englewood location and then decide whether or not it's something that you might want to professionalize, productionize, build into something bigger?
Brute force and ignorance. There's no system. If it's quicker, if it's faster, more profitable, better yield. So some of the research is that we're trying to make things bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Okay.
And so if we try it in Englewood on the small scale and it goes well, then we'll likely bring it here and do a single batch that'll just go draft only into the tap rooms. And if that goes well, then we will scale it slightly and call it a one-off release can where we don't put that much product out there. Maybe we'll do a couple hundred cases of, a small release there. And it's just like there's the slow and easy process to it. Unless we're playing with if we're playing with a new hop or something like that, it's easy to grip and rip that. So that is the thinking of when something scales and what scales and what gets popular and what hits and what doesn't. That is literally just as much what the consumers want versus what we want. It's a blend there. We're not rocket scientists over here. Like, if it sells and I don't love it, that means we will probably make more of it. And if it doesn't sell and I love it, we probably won't make much more of it. So and that's true for anyone on the team and anyone on the leadership team. Like we are a blend of what we like, what is producing well, and what the consumer wants, and the whole system.
How many times is it one that you really loved that just didn't sell?
I could write a book about that list. I would say that there's been a handful. Over the years, there's probably been, I don't know, there's got to have been 5-10 different beers that I thought were just perfect. And they didn't do shit. So, we don't make them anymore. And
Do you at least keep a placard?
Or we make very little. Yes.
Like, do you keep a list of ones these were the failures?
No, I don't. I don't. You also don't keep the report cards when your kid doesn't do well.
Yeah.
You keep the A's and the B's. That's about celebrating the wins more so than dreading on the losses there.
Makes sense. When I was down in the tap room in Englewood, I had that new Nova Lager. It's got the new yeast in there.
Yep.
My understanding is that if that comes through and has a lot of approval from the community, and it seems to work well for you guys as an ingredient, that it might be something you want to start scaling into other beers to make it a little bit better in the production.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we could bring into the fold and make it more a part of our everyday system and our year-round program. But we also have no commitment to that. We're not desperate for those types of change. We're just always trying to pay attention and keep hunting. And we want the brew staff to stay creative and keep trying new things. And that way, when we are looking at a new developed beer or a new something, there's a trend that's happening that we want to chase, we've got 2 or 3 tools in our toolbox ready to go, where we can navigate into that path pretty quickly, where we're not always starting from stage 0 or whatever.
So it's more about having more ingredients in your stable, knowing what you can do, and being able to grab them off the shelf at will.
Bingo.
Stepping into where we are now with Sanitas, expansion, hiring, building out the operation, have there been growing pains through this process?
Every day.
Well, are there some specific ones that you identified that you just feel like you still have to solve today? Or are there some that maybe you have solved?
Yeah, I think the biggest growing pain of trying to grow the way that we're growing is cash. There is always a cash game that's being played, and really what becomes where does the money go? Does it go towards the new thing? Does it go to more cans? Does it go to fix Boulder or update Boulder or change Boulder? And then, okay, here's the plan. We're going to skip fixing that thing. It's good enough for now. We're going to focus this time, energy, and cash over here. And, that balancing act. And then where's it coming from? Like, where is the cash coming from? There's times when the cash is coming from operations. There's times when I'm debt sourcing. There's times when I'm raising money. I mean, I've gotten money every which way you can possibly imagine. So I think that is the biggest challenge with these types of the type and the way we are trying to grow right now. And then for me, I think systematically and operationally, there's a concept. We run our business on an operating system called EOS, which is built off the book Traction, and I'm fairly die-hard EOS guy. And not that this is a sales pitch for EOS by any means, but we really do believe, and there's a concept in there of letting go of the vine, and that's really when the person like me passes off that responsibility to operate these things to other people on the team. And that's difficult because each one of these is kind of like my baby, or like babies, or whatever the analogy might be. And so the starting a new thing, building it, having all the components that you think you want to have, and then look to a team and say, okay, good luck, and checking in is is there's a lot of trust involved in there. And when it goes well, it's like, well, could it have been better? When it doesn't go well, it's like, well, what the hell's going on around here? And so from an operational perspective, I have a ton to learn on how to continue to lead and manage multiple spaces and multiple people that I don't have direct contact and direct touch points with every day. I'm all over the place. The locations are spread out, and finding that like magical balance to make sure that when a customer comes in, things are great is definitely a game. I don't know if that answered your question or not. I might have just been rambling.
No, that's great. And would you say that some of that management style involves allowing people to, at some level, make their own mistake, recover from that, report the outcome of that, and realize what it means to do a better job next time over?
Yeah, I mean, especially from the people who are leading and, the leaders here and the people that I'm leaning on and depending on the most, I need them to make mistakes. I need them to make mistakes. I need them to be open and honest about it. And we need to figure out how to get better, because if we're not learning, then we're giving up, we're quitting it, a desire to learn. That's another, we're hitting a lot of core values today, but like, it's another core value of mine. I want people to make mistakes. I want people to fall down. I want people to try new things. And I don't just want it, I need it. You spend time in Englewood, and that team is the most independent. Lafayette's only 15 minutes away from here, where I'm not in Englewood nearly as much as I'm in Boulder or in Lafayette. And that team, they've made mistakes. They need to try things. They need to be independent and go and do things. And we're really lucky to have a great nucleus of the team. The people who are down, it's a great team down there, and we're really lucky to have that. And I might not have that for much longer. You never know. These things evolve, and like every once in a while, you get a team where you're like, oh boy, the team's not as good as it used to be. Right now, the team down there is a dialed operation, and they're passionate, and they're doing a great job, and they believe in the system. And so I like to let them kind of go. And then all of a sudden, every once in a while, it's like, okay, we're doing this thing. And it's like, maybe we do something similar. Yeah. But yeah, I hunt people who want to go out, try new things, fall down, and they're motivated and enthusiastic about that criticism or feedback, where it's like, this didn't work, and it's like, cool, great, I get it.
Right.
Why? Not like that they just slump their shoulders and they feel like they made a mistake, that they screwed up, and I'm pissed off. It's like, why aren't we going to do this? Well, these are the 3 reasons why we're not doing that. And that to me is that's a great opportunity.
No, that makes sense. And it's something that I've said for a long time. You may know the old Apollo motto, failure is not an option. The reality is, for me and someone who's been in business before, you have to fail. You have to constantly fail. But if you don't learn from that failure and get back up with a newfound direction, then you've lost.
Sure. Yeah. I've never had a complete collapse failure yet, but I say yet with a don't tell my wife. But we are, this is not a perfect system. There are so many things that we can improve on constantly, and I refuse to stop. I refuse to stop learning. I refuse to stop trying to get better, and I'm trying to drive that into anyone who's around me, because I think it's fun, and falling down isn't always fun. Sometimes falling down hurts.
Yep.
And sometimes it hurts really bad. And I've been banged up. I know banged up well, all too well. But the coming back from being banged up is as good as it gets.
No, the moment that you stand up and dust the dirt off and realize that you've got a lesson to take forward with you, it means so much more.
Absolutely.
What's in the future, the next few months for Sanitas as we look out on the summer?
Sure.
Where do we go, and what kind of challenges and mountains do you feel like you need to climb right now to get us there?
Summer is summer's the bread and butter for us, so I can't wait. January is a terrible, terrible month in this industry, and I am very grateful that I don't have to deal with that month again for many more. So now it is really for us on a short term to medium term. It's really prepare for that busy season. We'll add a bunch of people. We'll probably add 5 to 10 new employees within the next 6 to 8 weeks. We have a lot of maintenance work to get everything ready, systems, like refresh everybody. Like, hey, remember, when it gets busy, we do it like this. So a lot of that is that hand-to-hand combat of getting the team ready to go for the season, and then continuously shopping for where the next location is. So we're always looking at deals. I think we have 3 different opportunities that we're looking at currently. What will come to fruition and what will not? No idea. I've made the mistake of speaking way too early about potential locations, but we will continue to open locations really throughout the Front Range, and we have a long-term vision of throughout the West. We will leave Colorado, not like leave, we will go beyond Colorado, and we will look for locations throughout really for us throughout the West. And that's the vision. And really when I say the West, I mean the Rocky Mountains. I don't need to go to California today.
Yeah, please say expand beyond Colorado, because I don't need you leaving.
Yeah. The Colorado is home, but we do have a vision to continue to see where we think our brand fits and where we want to be. It's really both. It's not just where the brand fits. It's places that we want to be, and selfishly, it's kind of places that I want to be and I want to spend time in. Because if all of a sudden we're a plane ride away, then I'm going on a pretty regular basis, and there's a lot of places I'm not that interested in spending significant amounts of time, and there's a lot of places I'd love to spend more time in. So the latter is definitely a focus if we're leaving, but today we're really focused on continuing to grow this footprint on the Front Range. We'll start to trickle up the mountains a little bit when a deal comes our way, but we really want to establish this as a long-term Colorado business and a serious player, and so that's my mid to long-term hunting.
As we look out over the next few months too, other than expansion and building out more spaces, is there anything that you're really just excited about that you feel like is going to be a challenge, that maybe when you meet it, that's when the excitement comes through?
Yeah, there's some opportunities. There's some opportunities that we're working through with, especially with Brewer Star right now, that it's too early to say now how things are going to come to fruition, but we have some opportunity to really evolve, shift, and change that company, and that's exciting to me. And then continuing to make this a bigger team and getting to work with new people, watching people grow within the company is something that I take a ton of pride in, and it's fun to watch somebody who starts as a part-time bartender. All of a sudden you're like, wait a second, you're like borderline trying to run this thing, aren't you? That's the stuff that really kind of gets me juiced.
And if we look back on the early years and the struggle and the process and everything you've gone through so far, I know we joked in the beginning about someone starting a business like this now and how it would be far more difficult than it was in the early years.
For sure.
Is there any sort of tactical advice that you would give someone? Because if it ultimately is about passion for a liquid, then the tent becoming bigger is not a bad thing necessarily.
I think it's a really hard time to start a brewery. I think you have almost everything up against you. If somebody came to me and said, this is what I want to do, what's your advice? My advice is don't do it.
Okay.
Don't do it today. I'm not saying don't ever do it, but our industry has changed drastically in the last couple of years. And the competition is harder and harder and harder. That being said, I do believe that I believe that every town in America can handle a brewery or two. Not every town needs to be Boulder, Denver, Longmont, like the Front Range of Colorado is, aka my playground. But
your favorite space.
Yes. But I think there is I think similarly around coffee shops. We can have a lot of coffee shops that can be successful. And there's a lot of people most people drink coffee. A lot of people drink coffee out. And I think that there can be a lot of coffee shops, but there becomes a point where there are too many coffee shops for the street or for the neighborhood or for the town or for the city or whatever. Starbucks is going to keep opening coffee shops, and their brand is more recognized than the rest. And so there is a threshold. Similarly with a tap room, a town of 100,000 people does not need 50 tap rooms. That isn't going to work. Now, if your town has one tap room in it and it's got 100 and 150,000 people, and that tap room's on the north side of town, and you happen to live on the south side of town, and you've got some cash in your pocket, and you want to start this brewery, and you want this to be a restaurant adjacent business where you're going to brew some beer and people can come for community and food and your beer and that type of an experience, I think you can be very successful. Just like people can be very successful in the restaurant industry. Should everyone go out and start a restaurant? Absolutely not. Most will fail. And I believe that most breweries that open in the short term are going to fail. I also believe that, at the end of 2023, we had just shy of 10,000 breweries in America. That has retracted slightly. That was the first year that we closed more than we opened, and then the total number in America did go down. I think that's going to go down significantly in 2025 and again in 2026. There's a lot of breweries that we know the names of that I don't think are going to be up and operating 2-3 years from now.
There's a lot that I know the names of that probably aren't going to be here in that time. Yeah,
correct. There's a lot of breweries that aren't going to make it through this time period. So if someone's trying to open a brewery today, I don't give a shit how good your liquid is. It's not just the liquid. It has to be liquid, food, experience, location has to be perfect. Like, if you're going to come into the game today and you're going to really win, everything has to be really, really dialed. And there are going to be stories. Mm-hmm. There's going to be breweries that opened 6 months ago, and they're going to be darlings, and they're going to get on the national scale, and they're going to go, and it's going to be great to see those stories. But they're going to be unicorns. They're going to be the 1 in 100 or the 1 in 1,000. It's a challenging time to do that. Again, it doesn't mean it can't happen. It means that everything's got to be special.
It means have all of your stars aligned, have your food and beverage, everything worked out. You can't just be a brewery anymore.
Correct. You can't just be a brewery. You have to be more than that. You have to be more than that for the people and the spaces. And if you've got a big pile of cash to burn, that's really helpful too. When I say a big pile, I'm not talking about like a couple $1 million.
Right.
I'm talking about millions of dollars. Really, really helpful.
Right.
We would love a few $1 million to burn.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, it's been great chatting with you. I think that's a good note to end on. Like, if someone wants to do this, get out there and do it, but know that it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a different space than it was a decade ago.
Big time.
And I mean, most businesses are going to fail, but I think, especially being in Colorado, that we're going to have still a great number of breweries that won't be here in a few years. And I know that's not optimistic, but that's real. That's the real talk, and that's the kind of response that I expected from you.
Yeah, it is real. I'm not celebrating this. I have friends that I have friends that have filed for bankruptcy, and I have friends who will. And hopefully it's not me, and hopefully it's not, it isn't, it doesn't, I'm not wishing this upon anyone, but this is a reality of where we've come as an industry. And it is a shifting world. It is a shifting market. Things are changing. Location, rents are changing. The overall economy's changed. There's a shift in where, how, why people are drinking. There's a lot of these, the ebb and flow of what's going on. And so how do we all react to that? And that's the mystery. That's the game, that's the game I'm playing. So.
Well, I would love to reconnect with you maybe in a year and a half and see how everything is going, because this has been a thoroughly engaging conversation and one that I hope the listeners will enjoy as well. If people want to find out more about Sanitas, where do they do that?
Website, sanitasbrewing.com. All the social shenanigans, we have it all. You can find us there. We should be in your liquor store all throughout the Front Range and up into the mountains a bit. And then the 3 tap rooms today between Boulder, Englewood, and Lafayette. But a strong Google search and you can find my home address if you want to.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for watching another episode of Craft and Process. I am Nicholas Young. We're coming to you from Sanitas Brewing in Boulder, Colorado. Once again, the home of the Cherry Saison and of course, so many other fantastic beverages. If you're watching this on YouTube, everything is down in the description. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartMedia, check the description for the links. I have everything from Sanitas Brewing down there. Once again, this has been Craft and Process. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.